Hello guys, you are watching your very own channel, Your Commercial Buddy, and today we're gonna learn Unit 1 of Audit and Assurance, that is concept, need, and purpose of audit. Right? So, total marks constituting of this chapter will be 10 marks, and this paper will come theory, so we have to write the answers. Okay, so let's get started. First, what is auditing? Right. When we say the term audit, what do we actually mean by it? Well, by definition, audit is a systematic and independent examination of data, statement, records, operations, and performances of an enterprise for a stated purpose. Right? So, audit is nothing but systematic and independent examination of data, statements, records, operations, and performances of an enterprise for a stated purpose. Right, so this is the definition of audit: systematic and independent examination of data, statements, records, operations, and performances of an enterprise for a stated purpose. Right, so points to underline is systematic and independent. Right, so from these two words we came to know that the process of audit is very systematic and independent, and the process comprises of examination of data, then examination of statements, examination of records, and all these things, and at last performances of an enterprise for a stated purpose. Right, so basically, uh, suppose personnel of a company goes to a CA firm uh, and tells his requests, right, that I need audit for this part of my company, and in order to meet his client's request, the CA will further do the do his job, that is auditing. Right, so this is basically what audit means. Then we are going to define some features of audit. Okay, so first is systematic. Okay, the first feature of audit is that it is very systematic. It is carried out in a very systematic manner. It indicates that an audit procedure should be carefully planned and should be arranged in a logical sequence. Right, so it is pre-planned, that how are we going to do the audit, and then they execute the plan. Right, next feature is independence. Right, so there should be no parties forceful, obligation should act on the CA while he is making the audit, or no external power should make CA impact on his audit report. Right, so this is what is independence. The auditor will do whatever he shall do and what is legal. Right, there should be no external force acting. Next feature is operation and performances. right? So basically what this feature means is that the this function widens the scope of audit from examination of books and of accounts and vouchers to reviewing operations and performances connected with non-financial areas also, right? So basically an audit is not only limited up to financial sectors, right? The scope of audit is broader, right? The scope of audit is broader than only these financial sectors of the company. Audit can be of various sectors of a company, right? So operation and performances feature basically states this only, that audit is not only limited up to the financial segment of the company. Audit can be of various segments of the company, right? Auditing can be done in various segments of the company. Next feature is stated purpose. Now this stated purpose basically means is that until and unless the clients requests the auditor to make audit on a particular segment, the auditor will not do so, right? The auditor will not do so. This is what stated purpose means. That means the auditor will make audit of only that specific segment for which he has been paid or he has been ordered to do so, okay, by the client. And these are four features of audit, okay. Next we are going to discuss the scopes of auditing, right? Scopes of auditing, or in other words, why auditing, right? So first uh, point is reliability and sufficiency of information, right? So first scope of audit is reliability and sufficiency of information. So the auditor must satisfy himself that the financial statements have been prepared on the basis of sufficient and reliable information. Right. So this is the duty of the auditor to make sure that the uh, work done by him or the reports made by him is depend made with sufficient information and proper information, right? So basically it is the auditor's duty to make sure that whatever he has done or whatever reports he has made, those are based on sufficient information and proper information, right? And the second scope is disclosure of relevant information in a proper way. So the auditor will examine to see whether relevant information have been properly disclosed in the financial statements in conformity with the statutory requirements, right? So the auditor will make sure that relevant information is properly disclosed to him, and whether all those informations which he require for doing his work properly has been given to him, right? So these two are duties of the auditor to check. And I was a bit wrong earlier. Scopes of auditing does not mean why audit, right? Scopes of audit, in other words, it can be written as duties of auditors, right? Or what are the scopes or what are the segments where auditor has the rights, right? Right to do what regarding his work. This is scope. Next we are going to discuss is objectives of audit, right? Next we are going to discuss objectives of audit. So objectives of audit can be classified into two major categories. First is primary objective, right? So primary objective of audit is to reporting on the reliability and fairness of financial statements, right? So basically what audit does is it reports on the reliability and fairness of financial statements. He cross checks all the financial statements and reports to the reports to the client that yes, all these financial statements are correct and this according to the sources given to him, right? And the secondary objective of audit is to detect and prevent errors, right? Detect and prevent errors and frauds, right? Errors and frauds are two different terms. Error means when any mistake is committed unknowingly, right? Unintentionally or unknowingly. But a fraud is when a mistake is committed knowingly or intentionally in order to make some profit out of it. So this is the difference, basic difference between error and fraud. So it is the duty of the auditor to cross check if there are any error or fraud in the financial statements, right? Next is making recommendations to prevent occurrence of error and fraud. Making recommendations to prevent occurrence of error and fraud. So the basically the auditor will give advice to his client on how occurrence of error and frauds can be minimized, right? And the next objective is making inquiry, reporting and expressing opinions on matters related to audit. This is similar to the second point, which tells us making inquiry, right? So basically the auditor will make inquiry on his scopes of work. He will report and express opinions on matters related to audit. Okay, so this is it. He will make inquiries, report problems and express his part of opinions on matters related to audit, like how it can be improved, how this overall system can be improved, how the audit can be improved, then how the organization can be more efficient in terms of financial statements, right? So these are the things that an auditor recommends to his client, right, after making an audit. Next we are going to discuss principles of audit. So there are 5 principles of audit, and before discussing them, let me clarify you what a principle is. So principle is, you can say call principle like a standard, right? So basic principle of an object basically describes how that object should be, right? How that thing should work or how the work should be accomplished. So principles are a set of should be or how things should work, right? So in Hindi, principles are called adarsh, and I am writing it down for you. So first principle of audit is integrity, objectivity and independence. So integrity and objectivity and independence is the first principle of audit, which means the auditor should be straightforward, honest and sincere in his approach to his professional work, right? So this is what it means. The auditor should maintain integrity. He should be work minded, and he should prioritize his work first, right? And he should act independently, right? He must be fair and must not allow prejudice or bias to oversight his objectivity. Okay, so he must be fair. That means he should work straightforwardly and should not be corrupted, right? So this is it. First principle of audit describes that the principal should the auditor should maintain integrity, objectivity, and he should be independent of any kind of external pressure. This is what first principle of audit describes. The second principle of audit is confidentiality, right? Confidentiality, which means the auditor should maintain privacy for on the matters, on the personal matters, or on the company matters of his client, right? He should not disclose, work related matters to everyone. Okay, so basically an auditor should maintain enough confidentiality. The third point or third principle is skill and competence, which basically tells us that an auditor should be skilled enough and competent enough for his work. Okay, the auditor should be skilled enough and competent enough in his work with adequate training, experience, and competence. Fourth point is work performed by others. So, yes, the auditor can make his work done by others, or this process is called delegation of authority. No, this process is called delegation of work, right? An auditor can delegate the responsibility of work, but he cannot delegate the responsibility, right? If ultimately any misoccurrence happens, right? If in case any misoccurrence happens, then the auditor is the one who is to be pointed at, right? The auditor will be one who will be held responsible for any kind of errors in report. Okay, so from fourth point we conclude that the auditor can delegate his work, but he cannot delegate his responsibility. So the auditor must guide and supervise the work done by the subordinates. Okay, and the fifth point is documentation, which says us that the work of the auditor or the final report of the auditor must be documented enough to be presented at the annual reports, right? Annual general meetings or whatever meetings it is to be presented, it should be presentable, right? It should be properly documented and presentable, because the auditor's report has to be presented in various places. Next, we are going to discuss social objectives of audit, right? Social objectives of audit. First, previously we have studied the primary and secondary objectives of audit. Now we are going to study social objectives of audit. Now, what are social objectives of audit? What do we mean by it? What do we mean by social objectives of audit? Social objective of audit means the audit, along with some business objectives or profit making objectives or ethical objectives, it has some social objectives as well. Those objectives which benefits the society, right? Which benefits the society. Now, what are they? First, social objective of audit is protection of shareholders' interest. Now, any knowledgeable shareholder will sell his shares whenever he notice any significant reduction in price of share. Okay. Due to this reason, companies, what they do, many times it is seen that companies do not show original price of their shares, right? So it is the company manipulates its financial books, and so the price of shares are shown incorrectly, so that the shareholders do not sell the shares or something similar, right? So this is what the auditor's duty is, that he has to properly go through the financial books and see if there is any misoccurrence of events or any miscalculation, error, or fraud in this regard, right? In this regard, so that shareholders' interest is intact. Okay. Next, social objective of audit is stopping tax evasions. Many a times it is seen that companies run away from tax. They plan, they do many tricks to avoid the due tax, right? But this is against the uh, what it is called, this is against the ethics of the company, because in order to ensure welfare of the society and overall economy, uh, providing tax is very important, right? So the auditor makes sure that his company or his client's company pays taxes, right? Pays taxes in time. So this is another social objectives of audit. Third is prevention of capital erosion, right? So capital erosion is nothing but when the efficiency of resources are not properly used in a company. So the company has to, you know what it is called, uh, compensate. The company has to compensate those losses with its capital, right? And to ensure that it does not happen, the auditor properly cross checks the financial books and goes through all the transactions deeply to make sure that resources are optimally utilized. Okay. Next, our fourth point is fair treatment with laborers. Fair treatment with laborers means the auditor has to make sure that the laborers are not deprived of any basic rights, or many a times, since laborers are the in the lowest paying people, right? Lowest paying faculties, because money received by the laborers are surrounded through hands of many people, right? Suppose CEO pays the middle CEO pays the manager, then the manager pays the middleman, that middleman pays the subsequent middleman, and finally, uh, through all those middlemen, money reaches the hands of laborers. So to ensure that proper money reaches into the hands of the laborers and their dues are duly resolved, the auditor cross checks all the entries and does so. Okay. And the last point is reasonable price for consumers. Now this point is directly related to cost audit, right? Specifically cost audit, what it does is it ensures that all the transactions are correct and is all the transactions are correct and it is properly made, right? The cost audit is properly made because at the end of the day, the cost audit is the factor which is responsible for price determination, right? So it is consumers basic right to get the product in reasonable price, for reasonable price. So this is how the auditor serves the society through its work, right? Or in other words, these are social objectives of audit. Next, what we are going to discuss is errors and fraud in audit. Previously, I gave you a basic overview of what error and fraud is. Now, I am going in depth discussion of errors and frauds, right? So, definition of error is error refers to unintentional or innocent mistake in financial statements, right? So basically an error is unintentional, right? Unintentional mistake is called error. Examples of error can be mathematical or clerical mistake, then mistakes in the application of accounting principles, then oversight, misinterpretation of facts, right? So these are some of the examples of errors and types of errors, right? Let me classify types of errors. First type is clerical mistakes. Clerical mistakes generally occur by the clerks of the enterprise, and those are minor errors which, if left unrecognized, can havocly impact to the enterprise. Then comes errors of principle. Right, errors of principle. This is an accounting concept where, while making entries in the financial statements, there are some errors of principle. Right, a principal errors. There are certain accounting principles. Suppose in place of one principle, the entry maker or the accountant made some entries according to some other principle. These are called errors of principle. Then there comes compensating errors. Right, compensating errors means, suppose I have made previously an entry of figure 10,000, right? But later I came to know that, suppose this is a bad debt, right? Suppose this is a bad debt that I made entry, but after making the entry, I came to know that actually the among this 2000, among this 10,000 rupees, 2000 has been termed as bad debt, right? Bad debt. That means this 2000 cannot be recovered. So ultimately, the entry should be 8,000, but suppose in place of 8,000, after erasing this 10,000, I set this 2000 figure. So these are commonly called compensating errors. And the fourth one is error of duplication. Now this error of duplication can be commonly seen in accounting statements prepared by amateur accountants, right? They are or trainee accountants. And what duplication of errors of duplication means, suppose two bank account. Here is a figure of 10,000, and then there is two bad debt. Here is here the figure should be of 1,000, right? 1,000, but this amount gets copied into this place. So ultimately the balance sheet will not match, right? And these type of errors are called errors of duplication. So this was what errors is. This is what error is. Next I am going to discuss fraud. Basically, a fraud is an intentional mistake, and the one who does that mistake generally have some profit motive behind it, right? Earning some excess profit. So, fraud by definition is any act committed with some mischievous objective is called fraud. It includes not only misappropriation of assets but also misinterpretation of facts to mislead others. Right, this is the definition of fraud, which basically means that it is an intentional mistake done by the enterprise organization or some other organization, agent of some other organization. Suppose the one who is making entries is an agent or working on behalf of some other company. Some other rival company paid him to make those mistakes, and in return the rival company will also get profit out of it, and in the one who made those mistakes will be given some, part of profit. So this is a basic example of fraud. Frauds can be of many types, right? So next we are going to discuss auditor's duty with regard to detection and prevention of fraud and errors, right? So next we are going to discuss fraud. Auditor's duty with regard to detection and prevention of fraud and errors, right? So our auditor has some duties regarding prevention and detection of fraud and errors, which is mentioned in account auditing standards 240, right? Standards of auditing 240, and these are: first, obtaining reasonable assurance, right? So the auditor should conduct audit with the object of obtaining reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from materialistic misstatements, whether caused by fraud or error, right? So it is basically said that the auditor should conduct audit with the objective of obtaining reasonable assurance, right? So he must conduct audit in order to make sure that the materials provided to him or the documents provided to him in order to prepare audit are free from any kind of misstatements or any fraud and error, right? So the auditor has the right to go in depth in those entries which are provided to the auditor, right? To check that whether those entries are made on the basis of proper happenings or not. Second is identifying fraud risk factor, right? So whenever our auditor suspects any possibility of fraud or any error, then the auditor should try his best to go in depth into that matter and identify those fraud risk factors, right? Next is attitude of professionalism, and the auditor should maintain an attitude of professionalism, right? He should not go too close with the enterprise for which he is working, right? He should always maintain an attitude of professionalism. That means it should not happen that the auditor goes to office and starts gossiping with the people of the enterprise, right? So this should not happen. He should maintain an attitude of professionalism. Next point is authenticity of documents. The auditor will believe that unless he has no reason to believe the contrary or the opposite, the auditor will believe that the documents provided to him for auditing purpose are all relevant and free of any error, right? Free of any error or genuine. But in case the auditor suspects that the documents provided to him are includes any kind of fraud or chances of fraud, then the auditor has the full right to go in depth into the matter and check the matter, right? So this is what is known as authenticity of documents. And the last point is discussing with team. Now, what shall the auditor discuss with team? The auditor shall discuss the auditor shall hold a discussion with his audit team about the possibility of entity's financial statement becoming susceptible or endangered to the material misstatement due to fraud, right? So basically we have been told that the auditor must consult to his audit team for determining any chances of misstatement or fraud in the financial statements provided to him, right? So these are the duties of an auditor with regard to detection and prevention of fraud and errors. Next we are going to discuss the term auditor's independence briefly, right? So what is auditor's independence? Auditor's independence means ability of the auditor to express opinions on the financial statements without any influence from parties that have an interest in the result published, right? So it basically means that the auditors the report that auditor produces, it should be free from any kind of pressure from the parties which might benefit from the, which might benefit from the report, right? So in this regard, there are two sub concepts of auditor's independence. The first is real independence, right? So real independence means independence of mind. Independence of mind, that means he should be free from any kind of pressure, and his mind should be clear while he is working on the audit report, right? All the decisions taken by him should be independent and free from any kind of pressures, right? Any kind of pressure from any party, right? And the second one is perceived independence. Now, the word perceived means it is seen, right? It is seen independence. So, it means that the auditor's work should be independent and it also should seem independent, right? Perceived, this is the difference between perceived and real. Real independence means the work of auditor should be real, the decisions of the auditor should be real, and perceived independence means the decisions of the auditor should actually seem real to other people, right? For example, suppose the auditor made a report and one party said, see, this auditor made reports on behalf of that person, on support to that, with support to that person. So this should not happen. The report should also seem independent from any kind of pressure, right? Seem or look independent, right? So this is what auditor's independence means. The next question, we are gonna classify audit on different heads. Okay, so first head is objective wise, under which the audit can be categorized under this head is first independent financial audit and second is internal audit, right? The second broad category is periodicity wise. Under periodicity wise, first heading can be periodical audit, second category can be interim audit, and third category can be continuous audit. And finally comes our organizational structure wise audit, under which the audit can be classified into statutory audit, non-statutory audit, statutory audit, and government audit, right? I will explain each of them in this video, so stay hold. Next, under the head classification of audit, we are going to discuss independent financial audit. So independent financial audit is an audit conducted by a person who is independent of the firm, right? So independent financial audit is conducted by a person independent of the firm, which basically means the person do not belong to the firm, right? Next point is for ascertaining true and fair view of business affairs. So its main objective is to ascertain true and fair view of business affairs, because if the person is from inside, right, he may not be able to give a true and unbiased view of the financial statements or business affairs. This is why the person who conducts independent financial audit is mainly an outsider, right? Mainly an outsider, usually a professional CA, and the main objective of independent financial audit, along with conducting the main objective of conducting independent financial audit is it that it should give an unbiased opinion about the fairness of financial statements, right? That is why it is called independent financial audit, right? Because it only identifies the financial statements and the transactions of the financial statements and gives an unbiased opinion about their fairness, right? So this is our independent financial audit, which comes under objective wise classification of audit. Next heading is internal audit. Well, internal audit is more or less similar to independent financial audit, but the only main point of difference is that the scope of internal audit is large, right? Very large and wide as compared to independent financial audit. Now, independent and continuous appraisal of all the operations of the undertaking, right? So, all the operations. Next point is thorough examination of transactions, right? Thorough examination of transactions. Then identifying any revenue leakages, like if there is any revenue leakage. Example of revenue leakage can be, suppose uh, the management has fixed a certain amount for a certain activity, right? So the audit, this internal audit is conducted for the purpose it sees that if all the money for that implemented for that purpose, or the money ascertained for that purpose is implemented successfully, or if there is any part of the money that middlemen are trying to cut out for their own profit, right? So these are the things internal audit cross check, and this is what is called identifying any revenue leakages. Next is verifying all kind of operations, big and small. This is where it differs from independent financial audit, because in case of independent financial audit, the scope is small, right? It is only limited up to financial transactions, small financial transactions. But internal audit, in case of internal audit, the auditor can verify all kind of operations, big and small, not only financial statements. And if he feels like it belongs to his scope of work, he can even interfere with the internal affairs of the company, right? And next point is ensures management plans are being carried out efficiently. Like just what I told, it is done to identify any revenue leakages, and it ensures management plans are being carried out efficiently, right? So it also ensures that management plans are being carried out efficiently. So this was our objective wise classification of audit, which under which there are mainly two categories: independent financial audit and internal audit. Next we are going to discuss periodicity wise classification of audit. Next we are going to discuss audit classified under periodicity wise. Okay, so as the name suggests, periodicity means we are going to classify audit on the basis of the time when audit is conducted. So first comes periodical audit or final audit, right? So it is basically undertaken at the end of the accounting year, and auditor starts his job after all the books are balanced and compilation of accounts is over, right? So we can understand from the definition itself that it is conducted at the end of the year when all the books are completed and balanced and compilation of accounts is over, right? All the books of entry, all the entries are done in the books, and the PL account, like the PL account, then the cash flow statements, then this balance sheet, all of them are done, right? All of them are done, and the auditor will finally cross check all the books, right? So this is called periodical audit. Next comes our continuous audit, which is conducted throughout the accounting year, right? Which is conducted throughout the accounting year. Now, see, it is not possible for the auditor to conduct the audit throughout the accounting year or every subsequent month, right? Because auditor has not only one client in his hand. The auditor works, one auditor or one proper auditor, an experienced auditor has a lot of work in his hand and may have 5 or 6 clients together, right? So it is not possible to stay at one client's office and conduct audit. So what he does is he deploys few audit staffs, right? Deploys few audit staffs which are deployed by the auditor at client's office throughout the year. So on the behalf of the auditor, the audit staffs may work, and what auditor does is that whenever audit staffs are required, the auditor requires the auditor, then the auditor comes only, right? And then at the end of the financial year, the auditor finally cross checks the work and prepares final report, right? Prepares final report. So this is continuous audit. We are going to discuss interim audit under the head periodicity wise classification, right? So interim audit is conducted in between two annual audits, right? It is conducted in between two annual audits. Then it is conducted for a part of the year, right? It is conducted for the part of the year for say 3 months or 6 months. So like quarterly interim audit or half yearly interim audit, like that. And it is conducted for some specific purpose, right? The purpose may vary from enterprise to enterprise, company to company, but generally it is conducted for some specific purpose, and it is not mandatory to conduct, but in certain cases it might be seen that problems have arisen while conducting audit, or the accountant working in the company itself finds some problem and he cannot figure it out by himself, so he brings the auditor to do an interim audit, right? So this is what interim audit is. Next comes is balance sheet audit. Now balance sheet audit, as the name suggests, it is the verification of all items appearing in the balance sheet of the company, right? Next we are going to discuss the standard audit, right? The standard audit. So the standard audit basically thorough checks or cross checks the analysis of certain items in the accounts which are of material importance, right? So it is the process of thorough checking and analysis of certain items in the accounts, or specific items in the accounts which are of material importance, right? And what about the rest of the items, right? In a financial statement, only specific items are cross checked thoroughly. And what about rest of the items? Well, in this part of audit, or this in this category of audit, to be specific, test check is applied to the remaining items. So basically, under this standard audit, certain transactions are thoroughly analyzed, and the rest of the items are left for cross check, left for test check, right? Test check I will discuss later. It is a very narrow range of audit, right? It only goes through the transactions and checks very lightly, right? Its scope is very narrow, and provided there is an adequate system of internal check in operations. So there is a condition for successful implement of standard audit, that there must be an adequate system of internal check, right? So this is what standard audit is. Next is our system audit, right? System audit, as its name suggests, it is conducted to examine suitability of various existing accounting systems prevailing in this firm. So the system audit basically verifies the prevailing accounting systems in the firm, right? The prevailing accounting systems in the firm, and then it assesses the existing system of accounting. Same thing, it assesses the existing system of accounting to determine whether they are working efficiently or not, right? So basically, system audit is an audit of existing accounting system to ensure if they are working efficiently or not. It is an audit to explore internal systems. So, right, so it is an audit to explore the internal systems or internal accounting system. Next, we are going to discuss the EDP audit, right? So, what EDP audit does is it cross checks the computerized accounting system existing in the firm. Okay, so many firms adapt this method of computerized accounting systems to avoid paying heavily to the person accountants, right? So, in order to avoid the the revenues that goes out by paying the person accountants, many firms opt to do their accounting jobs by way of computerized systems. Now, this computerized system of accounting involves many kind of risks, because once there is any risk while the accountant exists, then the whole responsibility can be delegated to him, right? The whole responsibility can be delegated to the accountant, that you were given the responsibility, then why did not you do it sincerely, and because of you this incident happened. But what in case of computerized systems? Nobody can be held responsible, right? So there are a few disadvantages of EDP audit which I am gonna discuss later on. Now first let me explain what is EDP audit. So EDP audit basically determines whether the computerized accounting system is working properly or not, whether there is any vulnerability to the company's confidential data by process of hacking or spoofing, right? So this is what EDP audit does. It determines the uh, performance of computerized accounting system, and it detects whether there is any vulnerability to the companies due to computerized accounting system. Next, we are going to discuss some disadvantages of EDP audit, which are sophisticated computer frauds are very difficult to detect, right? So EDP, in case of EDP audit, the one who checks the audit, right, checks the or not audit, who checks the system is specializes in these accounting fields, right? Accounting, finance, and all these audit fields. He may not be an expert detector of virus or hackers existing, right? So in many cases it is seen that hacking becomes very, you know, uh, prone to the system becomes very prone to hacking, right? There is one more definition of EDP audit. The EDP audit not only cross checks the system accounting system, but it also cross checks the output of the accounting system, output generated by the accounting system. Suppose the whole year the firm does its accounting jobs from the machine, and then at the end of the year an auditor comes and cross checks the transactions. It is called EDP audit. But we were discussing the disadvantages of EDP audit, where we saw that computer frauds are sophisticated computer frauds are very difficult to detect. So EDP audit becomes the system becomes very prone to hacking. Just like I told, point 2, hacking becomes a very possible threat. And the third point is decentralized computer system exposes the system to abuse, right? Now what is decentralized computer system? Decentralized computer system means the main headquarters of the company will not be able to process or access the computerized systems of of its branches, right? So for example, suppose there is a headquarter of Bata in Kolkata, and there are branches existing in various cities, various states of India, right? So the authorities of the headquarters may not be able to access the data of existing in the you know branches in the computers of the branches, but the computers existing in the branches have all the sequential and confidential data regarding the company. So if any hacker becomes successful in hacking any of the branches of the computer, then he may be able to access many confidential data about the company, not only the branch. So these are some of the common problems existing in the EDP audit, right? So this is it. Next we are going to discuss the partial audit, right? So in partial audit, audit is considered on specific records or books, right? Specific records or book for whole or part of the financial year, and the auditor is given restricted scope with regard to his power of inquiry. So it is written in pretty simple language. We can understand that audit is conducted only on specific entries or records or books, right? The auditor is not given access to all the aspects of the of the work of the field where he is working, and his working scope is restricted to a specific record or part of the work, right? Or part of the record or part of the information he will be able to access. This is called partial audit. Partial means only a part, right? So in by the name we can understand what this audit is like, right? So this was our partial audit. Next we come to statutory audit. Now what is statutory audit? Statutory audit, when an audit is considered compulsorily as per statute, it is called statutory audit. When an audit is conducted compulsorily as per statute, right? So as per rules and regulations or of the company, or memorandum of association or article of association of the company may require to conduct an audit at a specific time of the year or before that, because this statutory audit report is presented in the statutory meetings. So this is why basically this kind of audit is done, right? Required to be completed before occurring of statutory meetings. So by definition, when an audit is done for the requirements of the statutory meetings of the company, and it is done as per the requirements of the statutory meetings of the company, then that type of audit is called statutory audit, right? Next we are going to discuss the non-statutory audit or private audit, right? From the name itself, that is private audit, we can understand what kind of audit it might be. So let me read out the points here. When audit is conducted without any legal requirement, that audit will be called as private audit, without any legal requirement, right? This kind of audit is arranged purely voluntarily or according to the will of the owner, right? There is no pressure from any law or anything like that. Then auditor is appointed as per agreement in which the nature, scope and duties regarding to his work are stated. So basically before the auditor comes into act, he will be provided with an agreement in which all the scopes of his work, or in which segment of the enterprise he will be working, or particularly for which part of the financial statements he will be auditing, etc. are stated in the agreement, right? The auditor cannot go beyond this agreement as per his own will, right? This is purely a private audit. Then the last point is sole proprietor, then partnership firms, then non-profit organizations, real estate managers, etc. are some of the parties which get their accounts audited to make them reliable and acceptable to others. Right? Since the- this type of, the companies have to attract more and more clients or customers, and in order to run their business. So this type of organizations tend to conduct private audit, right, to make their accounts audited, to make their accounts reliable and acceptable to others. So the purpose of private audit is to make their data reliable and acceptable to others. Otherwise, who will bear the burden of the extra cost required for this private audit, right? Surely there must be some profit motive behind to make such kind of audit. Okay, so this is what non-statutory audit is, right? Next, we are going to discuss the standards of auditing. So we are going to discuss the standards of auditing, right? We are going to discuss the definition of standards of auditing, and subsequently we are going to discuss two standards of auditing relevant to this chapter. So what are standards of auditing? Standards of auditing or auditing standards refer to a set of systematic guidelines used by auditors while conducting audit. So auditing standards are basically a set of systematic guidelines used by auditors while conducting audit. Right? Everything has some rules and regulations or guidelines laid down. Every professional work has rules and regulations to it. And the auditing standards relate to the rules and regulations which are related to audit. Right? Next point, these guidelines are prescribed by the professional bodies of accountants. Right? So, as the point itself says, the guidelines are prescribed by the professional bodies of accountants. Right. Next point is based on collective deliberations and views of different segments of the society. These guidelines are made on the basis of collective deliberations and taking the views of different segments of the society and interested parties. Right. So this is standards of auditing. Then two standards of auditing relevant to this chapter is first standards of auditing 200, which states overall objectives of independent auditor, and it also states conducting audit according to standards of auditing. The standard of auditing standards of audit 200 states first two things. First, overall objective of independent auditor, and secondly, conducting audit according to the standards of auditing. So these are the two things standards of auditing 200 determines or relates to. Right. Next is standards of auditing 240, which explains auditors' responsibility in detecting fraud and errors. I have already discussed both the topics in this video, so you can you can go back and watch them if you want. Right. So these are the two auditing standards relevant to this chapter. So this ends our chapter. Next we will be studying or discussing unit 2, that is audit procedures and techniques. Thank you for watching.